Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. That's right, the video game show that is not hosted by an annoying e-beggar. There is no Patreon, no Super Chats. That's right, we just talk about the games we love and how fun it is to hoard them. Collect them. Now, with that said, let's get ready for the show. On today's episode, this show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Took a couple of days off here, guys, trying to rest the voice. But I wanted to talk about the state of the video game industry today. All right, I'm looking at Summer Game Fest, and this is Sunday morning. Right now, I am sanding some walls. I'm doing a lot of home repair work. I started thinking about the state of the video game industry. Right now, the little time that I get, I pretty much am just playing Helldivers and whatever retro game I can muster in here and there. Putting a lot of my games in storage with the remodeling. You guys know how remodels are. It's just nuts, right? And let me tell you, I was thinking about how the video game industry has changed and how in the last 10 years, when a lot of quote-unquote gamers have become executives of these companies, major companies, the video game industry is actually worse. We were doing better before when the company executives were old men that didn't know jack squat, right? They were just paying attention to the books. But once we got these individuals that supposedly know gaming, right? They know what you want. They make some of the crappiest games ever. You can make games about anything, right? Forget the politics, forget the DEI, forget anything. Right? You can make games about anything, and as long as the gameplay is strong and there's replayability, people are going to play them. But the industry right now is mostly focused on making profits and a certain amount of profits, at least in corporate gaming. Corporate gaming is really what has ruined a lot of the video game industry that we know today. And that corporate gaming is being run by supposed gamers. So how is it that we, back in the 90s, right? Let's talk about the 90s. How is it that we were excited to pay $70 for a game back then, which is like $120 in today's money, more or less, I think. Let's just say it was $100. Right, I did pay, Street Fighter, when it was sold out, was going for $100 out on the street when it came out on the Super NES. It was crazy. I mean, it released at 72, but there wasn't copies left. In LA for a while, the game was $100. And everybody was excited about it. You don't see that excitement today. Nobody's excited to go out there and pay $150, $100 for a game that contains gameplay they don't like, with characters that they don't like, with storylines that are not even that good. So how is it that these old men back in the 90s were producing video games that to this day we're still playing? Think of this. Many modern gamers right now are turning to old games. They're playing the PS3. They're playing the Xbox 360. They're looking at retro games because they're not finding what they want in today's modern market. And the difference is that these older men, they didn't know what was what. They didn't know an RPG from a shooter from anything else. They would just invest in something. Somebody would come up with an idea, and they go, sure, let's make it. Let's see what happens. And they didn't have their fingers in the mix. They didn't have the fingers on the artist telling them what to create, or what was good or what was not, based on what kind of loan they were going to get. They were looking at returns before gameplay. Look at what we're going to get now with Concord. This game is a terrible idea. I'm sure it was in development for a long time ago, but that's the problem with these development times. That's the problem with these type of games, that you can't pivot. I'm sure Sony knew, right, as soon as Helldivers came out, that this was going to be a stinker. They already knew. But they couldn't do anything about it because they're so invested in the game. They have to release it now. Right? And they don't have the variety. They already said ahead of time 30% of our games are going to be X, right? And let's give it to Sony. They have many of the developers that are still keeping gaming exciting. But that can't be sustainable. We need to go back to the days where creators could create without having some company, some corporation meddling in the affairs of the artist. Whether it's music, whether it's censorship, whether it's dialogue, these guys are always in there. And you've never heard a story of, hey, you know, this game was great, and then these guys came in and changed it. They hire a consulting company, and the game just got better. That's not happening, right? We changed this game because we needed to make more profit, so we added microtransactions. Nope. Let's think about how many games, AAA games, were ruined. Think about Battlefront. Think of, the Shadow of Mordor series. It was Middle Earth. I mean, it was just bad ideas all around. Many games have been ruined by microtransactions. Many games have been ruined by corporations meddling in the mix, if you will. That's why people are turning back to retro games, because they know what they're going to get. They know it's all about the gameplay. They want to hear a story that hasn't been edited for, whatever reason, so they don't offend anybody. They don't care. I want to hear stories about vampire Nazis, right? Operation Darkness. I want to hear stories that are politically incorrect for comedy purposes, right? I want to see people making fun of each other with stereotypes in a comedic, fun way, like we used to before, like we do with my friends, like you do with your friends. I've grown up with friends of different races. I've lived in cities where it's always multicultural, and we bug each other on different things because we are friends, because we do care for each other, right? But that's no longer the norm. God forbid that a friend and I joke around my house and maybe Alexa is listening, or now your Xbox. This is where games are going. This is where gaming is going. And it's not anywhere that anybody wants it to be, not real gamers. There's a new generation of gamers that are just consumers. They're just nailed to a screen. They're really not appreciating art. It's a different kind of consumer. And unfortunately, that is the new consumer. The new consumer that buys microtransactions in order to impress their friends because they have a different type of item. Societies change. People change. Right? But for those of us who grew up with a certain type of game, who have an appreciation for art, who have an appreciation for the music, this is not our market. Not at all. Like I said, look back at retro gaming. Look back at the things that we enjoy doing now. We not only talk about the games when they were made, we talk about the physical media, we talk about the music, we talk about the art, we talk about all these things. And these older games made by businessmen that didn't know anything about video games. And right now that is rare. That is rare. That's why when you find a good game in today's market, everybody flocks to it. Because it's so rare to find. You don't get a lot of good games. You get product. People are not making art. They're making products for mass distribution. That's why people aren't excited anymore, with a very few exceptions. Will those times return? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm hoping that with AI, it will liberate a lot of creators to do a lot of things on their own who don't want to be managed by these companies who are only in the pursuit of profit, who don't want to conform to the norms of a society that is not their own, right? You don't have to bend the knee to whatever, media pressures are in the US, for example, or in Europe. You want to make your own game, and if it offends some people, so what, right? And even the stuff that we make could be made funner with better writing. But everything right now, in mass, if you just take it into account, is worse. The art is worse because it could be too offensive. So they're trying to make all the characters the same. They're bland. The music is worse because everything's copyrighted. You can only have a song for, whatever amount of time, and you can't do it here, you can't do it there, you can't do it anywhere. Artists are not getting paid what they're worth now because it's all going to be AI. I mean, it's not a great environment if you're an artist in the video game industry now. It wasn't what it was back in the 90s and the early 2000s. All that is gone. And that is why people are turning back to retro games. And in many ways, we were better off back in the days when the companies were run by businessmen that didn't know anything about video games than it is today with the supposed gamers that now run the video game companies. All right, humans, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.
New videos every Monday and Sunday. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Gen X Gamer. Remember to like and subscribe, click that notification bell, and remember, never ever be afraid to be happy. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.